traveling viewers, it's Jen here at Check Her Joy, and this time I'm reviewing Renegades by Marissa Meyer. I listened to part of this as the audiobook, which is narrated by Rebecca Soler and Dan Bittner, and I read the other part of it in the physical book, which is about 500 pages, if you're wondering. It's kind of big. So this is the first part of a duology from Marissa Meyer. She also wrote the Lunar Chronicles, which are amazing and I super love and highly recommend, and you guys should totally check those out. But Renegades is set in a completely different universe, and it focuses on super powered humans. These guys called prodigies, and they mostly fall into one of two camps. Either the Renegades, which are the good guys and superheroes, or the anarchists, who are the bad guys and the villains. So in this world, we've gone through a lot of political turmoil with like regime changes and stuff. People got their superpowers, and it kind of caused chaos. And this one guy, Ace Anarchy, took over, and he ushered in this age of anarchy for 20 years, where there wasn't a police force, there wasn't a strong central government. He really wanted everybody to have a right to make their own decisions and to do what they want, especially with their superpowers. But of course, not every human is awesome, and we need police for a reason. So there was a lot of looting, a lot of gangs, there's a lot of homelessness, and people not being able to have food or medical care, and it was just not great. And so 10 years ago in this world, there was this big battle where the Renegades actually took over, and now they're in charge. And the Renegades are kind of the opposite. They have lots of rules, and the Renegades are kind of in charge of everything. Like, they're the entire government. They're the ones who make the laws, they're the ones who enforce the laws, they're the judges, like, the Renegades are just in charge. And that's also not fabulous, because not everybody's on board with the Renegades. And they also tend to make promises that they aren't following through with. So I kind of feel like neither one of these groups is great, even though one of them is being deemed good guys and one of them is being deemed the bad guys. This book is told from third-person perspective, but part of it follows Nova, who is raised as an anarchist, and part of it follows Adrian, who is raised as one of the Renegades. So we do get to see both sides of this political struggle, which is kind of the part that I was more interested in than the actual superpowers. Although, obviously, that is a part of this book. The first character we're introduced to is Nova, and she was raised with the anarchists. She lives in this camp in these tunnels of the subway that's now defunct and out running, and she lives with all the villains. And her uncle was Ace Anarchy, and so she just kind of got adopted by this group by virtue of her birth. And she hasn't really had to think about it too much, but she definitely has reasons for hating the Renegades, and she blames them for her parents' death. And so Nova's got this revenge streak going on with her. Nova is superpowered, and her power is that she can put people to sleep by just touching them, which is a great thing to have in battle. If you're like fighting somebody, you just touch them and then they pass out and they can't fight you anymore. That's awesome. She also doesn't need sleep herself, which is pretty cool. It means she can pull all kinds of all-nighters and perfect skills. She has some really mad fight skills also, like, that are not superpowered. Like, she can go up against the best of these guys just with, like, martial arts type training, which I love about her. And then the other main character we're following is Adrian, and he is one of the Renegades. And Adrian's power is that he can draw stuff and then bring it to life. So, like, one of my favorite things he does is he draws these little dinosaur scribbles, and then he can bring them to life, and they're just like these two-dimensional dinosaurs. They go around chopping things, and I think they're so cute and adorable. But then he can also do other really cool things, like design weapons or things that they might need. So, like, if something breaks in Renegade headquarters and they need a part, Sketch can just draw it and make the part that they're missing, which is pretty sweet. So I really like Adrian's abilities. Adrian also has some family ties into why he's a renegade. His mother was one of the founding members of the Renegades, and when she died, he got adopted by two of the leaders, like the two big honchos in the city. So his two dads are the leaders of the Renegades, which I love. I also love the fact that his dads, like, he just has two dads, and it's, like, awesome, and everybody's cool with it because they're the major superheroes. Who's gonna argue with them? But it's kind of not a big deal in this world. It just is. Both Nova and Adrian are kind of these gray area characters. Nova probably more so, but even Adrian kind of questions what the Renegades are doing and why they're doing it and how they're going about it. And so I love seeing it from the perspective of people who are not only raised within those different camps and are best friends with these people, but also are questioning, actively questioning what is happening and why. So there are a lot of superheroes in this book, and listening to the audiobook first, I didn't realize that there is a cast of characters in the actual physical book telling you who everybody is, what side they're on, and what their powers are, which is super helpful. So totally make use of this. Um, so the other people, like the other main superheroes, we'll start with them that you probably would want to know. And their superpowers are cool. Like they're all over the place. Like on Adrian's team, one of the girls, she turns into a bunch of butterflies, like just turns into a swarm of butterflies. And it's great for like reconnaissance and stuff because like the butterflies can float into small spaces and can like scout, which is really awesome. It's also really hard to hit somebody if they're not solid. Um, there's also the Red Assassin, and her blood turns into rubies, which seems kind of silly, except she can make weapons out of that. So she has like a grappling hook with a ruby on the end of it, which is so cool, and can make like a swords out of the rubies. And then the other person of Adrian's team is Smokescreen, and he can just produce large quantities of smoke. So if you ever need like cover and to run and stuff, or to have what you're doing be obscured, like I love the fact that they're not just straight like physical strength superpowers. Like they're really interesting. And then we have Adrian's dads. So Captain Chromium, Hugh Everhart, is like the big honcho, and he does have super strength. He has like this chromium. He has this material called chromium underneath his skin, so like you can't damage him, you can't injure him. He's also super strong, which is pretty cool. And then Adrian's other dad is Simon Westwood, and he's the Dread Warden, and he can just turn invisible, which is pretty sweet. There's also members on the council, the ruling body, that can turn into water and manipulate the weather and can fly, and one of them manipulates darkness and light, which is pretty sweet. As for the anarchists and Nova's team, we've got the detonator, who can produce bombs and set them off all over the place. There's the puppeteer, who can control other people, especially small children, which is a little bit creepy. There's Queen Bee, who can control bees, wasps, and hornets, and just like control their like these swarms that can attack you, which is pretty sweet. And then we have Cyanide, who's skilled at producing poisons and creating weapons. And then there's Phobia, and Phobium just transforms him into the embodiment of fears, which is just, I need to know so much more about Phobia, honestly. And he's always just kind of looming in the background. Like, we don't get to know him very well. He's kind of just this, like, dark force that looms as part of the anarchists. So those are the main superheroes. I also love the fact there's tons of diversity in here. Like, Smokescreen is crippled. He can produce smoke, but his physical body is still weak. He has a cane, and his superpowers don't fix a genetic problem he has with his legs. And there's racial diversity amongst the characters also, being from all different backgrounds all over the world. But I just love how each of these characters is different, and because we get to see them from both Nova and Adrian's perspective, we get to see them as both the good guys and the bad guys. So even though like the Queen Bee is technically a villain, when we see her from Nova's perspective, she's one of the good guys. Or when we're seeing, Adrian's dads from Nova's perspective, then they're the bad guys, which is really sweet, and I enjoyed that part of this book. There is also a very intricately woven dynamic happening between Nova and Adrian themselves as they meet, as they get to know each other better, as they're hunting each other down because they're actually on opposite sides. And I really love the two of them together. There's also a romance between the two of them, which is kind of not immediately like fall in love with each other. Like, they both notice the other one, are like, hey, they're kind of cute. But it takes a really slow build for them to actually start to fall for the other person. And I love that slow build and getting to know each other, especially in spite of everything else that's happening. So I love Nova and Adrian's relationships. The world building in this book kind of takes a while, especially at the beginning. Like, it took me a while to get into this book. And there is a fight scene, like, right at the beginning, which I wasn't really that interested in. I'm not a big fight scene person to begin with. And since it happened at the beginning, I didn't care about the characters that were fighting. Like, it could really have gone either way in any direction, and I wouldn't have cared at all because I didn't have a strong attachment to Nova or Adrian or anybody else at that point. So I didn't really care about that first opening fight. But once we got past that and got developing into their characters more, then I started getting into this book. There's also one event that happens in this book in the middle, which takes up a good chunk of the middle, which I felt like wasn't necessary. Like, we could have shortened that to even have gotten rid of that scene altogether and made this book smaller. So, despite those two things happening, I still gave this 4 stars. Just couldn't give it the 5 because it just took so long to get into this book and really start enjoying it. But I did eventually get there. I did eventually love it. So yes, I do recommend Renegades by Marissa Meyer. If you guys are wondering, you should totally check this book out. I am going to do a spoilery section for it, though, because there are things that I definitely want to talk about. So if you haven't read this book yet, peace out, I love you, and keep reading. And if you have spoilers, and more spoilers. Okay, so first off in this book, Nova infiltrates the Renegades. She legitly tries out, doesn't tell them that she's a Nightmare because they don't know her true identity, and she kind of takes a fake last name anyway. So even if they did know her, like, it wouldn't be obvious. And then she just tries out for the Renegades, like everybody else. And she gets in, and it's awesome. I also love the fact that she doesn't use any of her superpowers to gain her way onto the team. Like, she tells them that her superpower is not being able to sleep, and doesn't tell them that she can do the making everybody else fall asleep, because that's what Nightmare's known for. And so she gets on the team with just the not being able to sleep part and just mad fighting skills. In fact, she takes on the giant rock person, Gargoyle, and defeats him, and it's amazing. Like, I love that entire scene. I also love the fact that Nova just gets on the team without her superpower. Like, she didn't actually kind of need it, which was sweet. And then when she's on there, she does this whole thing where she is scouting out information and trying to spy for the anarchists, but she's doing what I think is a really bad job of keeping her identity secret. Like, she literally walks up to the information guy and he's like, you guys don't have any telepaths here, do you? Like, dude, that's like a suspicious question. Why would you ask that? And she does that at several points in here where she just, if you're really paying attention, that's really suspicious, but luckily the people she's talking to are not that clever and smart, apparently. I don't know. But I kind of liked it. Like, I love Nova almost getting caught, but then not because nobody else is paying attention. Like, she almost gave herself away. And then this creates this whole dynamic between Nova and Adrian as she joins the Renegades, and specifically joins Adrian's team, and starts getting close to him and getting to know him. And this is when they start actually liking each other and building kind of trust, but also not because she's lying to him. And also, Adrian's lying to her because Adrian's also the Sentinel, which is this dude that nobody knows who he is, who just shows up, and the only thing he wants is to know who Nightmare is, which is a little bit creepy. And I don't blame everybody for not telling the Sentinel who Nightmare is, especially Nova. Like, why would I want to tell you that? Honestly. But I'm kind of, like, reading this book, and I was, like, half expecting one of them to slip up and the other one to, like, start to figure it out. But, I mean, it is a duology, and this is only book 1, so they didn't actually figure it out. But I was like, you guys are not very smart. How do you achieve anything? But also, you're kind of adorable, and I really love these two together. Can I just tell you, they are amazing. I also love how intertwined they end up getting. Like, their destinies are so parallel. They're just this hair's breadth away from each other, basically, with Nova hiding as one of the Renegades, and then Adrian going rogue. And I really think if the two of them actually talked to each other and started working things out, they could find a middle ground that wasn't just anarchy or the Renegades, and might actually be able to build something amazing, which is kind of what I'm hoping happens in book 2. Please, oh please, I would love that. Also, I want the two of them to end up together because they're awesome. And just the entire dynamic, like, Adrian especially starts getting really cute when he starts falling for Nova. Like, when he shows up at Renegade headquarters at 3 a.m. bringing her sandwiches because she's working the night shift, and for no other reason, just to bring her sandwiches because she might be hungry. or he takes her to the theme park on what is supposed to be reconnaissance mission, but actually it's just a date. Like, he didn't actually expect to find anything. He just wanted to take Nova on a date and knew she would say no if he asked her flat out, which is kind of cute and adorable. And I actually love the entire scene in the theme park, especially when they're doing the kids' birthday party and they're just like drawing and like just being superheroes and having fun with it, which was pretty cool. The really big battle that happens in here that was driving me crazy was the one in the library. So they are staking out this library to try to catch the anarchists doing an arms deal. And when one of them goes in, it's detonator, and like they automatically think, oh, she's gonna blow up the library. So they rush in, or at least Nova convinces them to rush in. And I'm kind of just like, if she's trying to buy arms off them, why would she want to blow the library up? But then detonator actually does blow the library up, so maybe they had reason. But they also don't call for backup at any point. Like, how long does it take when you've got a communicator on your wrist to just be like, hey, we're at the library. We're about to go in there. It would be really awesome if you guys could come back us up. I don't think we can wait for you to show up, but we're going in. But if you could, like, get here super fast. But they don't do that. So the backup doesn't show up until the very end of the fight. And seems reckless and stupid of them. I guess Adrian was like, my dad's not going to let me do this if I call it in. But they could have had somebody else do it and just done it anyway. Also, what happens in the library, like, they're destroying a library, which as a bookworm just kills me. Especially in this dystopian world where there aren't a ton of books, to destroy the few that you have in such a dramatic way was just having me, like, that was freaking me out. Not the fight itself, but, like, the books. Like, you guys are humans, you can take care of yourselves, but the books, guys, the books. And then also, we don't really learn anything from it. We just get the scene where Adrian shows up as a sentinel and he's having a conversation with Nova, trying to find a nightmare, and she's like, I don't know anything about this nightmare person. That's, like, really the only advantage of this. So that took up way too much of this book for as little as we got out of it. Maybe I just really don't like the fight scenes, guys. Just don't. That's not me. Other things to talk about. Ooh, there's also Max. Can we please talk about Max and how he steals everybody else's power? It was kind of obvious because they tell Nova that his name is Bandit, so obviously he's stealing something, and what else would cause him to be put in isolation for his own good as much as everybody else's good around him? Is that he's stealing other people's powers and just making them powerless, which would not be a great thing in the middle of superhero headquarters. But Nova didn't catch on until her powers were actually being drained from her, and even then, I'm not sure she actually understood until Adrian flat out explains it to her. Like, just a little slow on the uptake sometimes. But Max's whole existence living in this glass box is kind of heartbreaking. And it really looks like Adrian's the only one who comes and hangs out with him. Adrian and sometimes Simon. And nobody else seems to really want to talk to him. He gets super excited for Nova, and I think part of that is her really cool abilities and the fact that she took on Gargoyle without actually using superpowers. But I think also because she's one of the few people who actually stops and talks to him and spends time with him. So I'm sad for Max. It's also really heartbreaking, but kind of cool to hear about how they actually took down Ace Anarchy, and how Captain Chromium went into battle with baby Max strapped to him, and that's just basically all he had to do, because that just sucked out Ace Anarchy's powers. Like, you're putting a baby into battle, which is kind of creepy, but also it's really cool that worked. But also, are you sure that was gonna work? I have so many thoughts and feelings that are just all over the place about the fact that even happened. I think it's mostly kind of cool since it did end up working, and it would be really awesome to see what Max can do in book 2. And also, they derived this serum from Max's powers, which it sounds like it's going to be taking away superheroes' powers. And especially the fact that the Renegades are designed it specifically to take away the powers of anybody who doesn't want to be a Renegade, which seems super sketchy to me and not a good idea. Like, not just take the powers away from criminals, but just anybody who doesn't want to be a Renegade. I mean, what if you just want to have superpowers? What if you don't want to be a superhero? You just want to, like, be able to fry eggs with your laser eyes or whatever power you have. Why do you have to be a Renegade? So I'm not a fan of that serum. The interrogation, what they do with Winston, the puppeteer. Winston gets captured, and Adrian convinces everybody to let him and his team go in there and question him about Nightmare. And Nova is in the room at the time as Insomnia, and she and Winston can't really communicate, and she just shows up and they're asking him about Nightmare, and Winston's just like, wait, she's right there. What am I supposed to do? And you kind of get this idea that he's kind of confused, but also he does such a good job of covering, and also everybody seems to be a little bit clueless, that it makes such a funny scene. And I love him trying to throw them off the trail, and they're like, what's her name? And he's like, Noreen. Her name is Noreen. And just slyly almost revealing it, but not really. And then he's the one who throws them off the sun and tells them to go to the theme park, which has nothing to do with Nightmare. It's just a place that Winston likes to go. I was like, this is so funny. Kind of cringeworthy, but mostly really a funny scene, and I loved it. And Winston just became one of my favorite characters in that one particular scene. It's also a little bit sad to hear him talk about Nova as once having been his friend, and you're just like, oh, and then she turned her back on you and outgrew you. Nova, you're such a jerk. Up until that point, I was like, whatever about Winston. Then I was like, oh. So I'm hoping Winston plays a bigger part in book 2. Please, oh please. So Nova goes looking for Ace Anarchy's helmet, and she finds it, but it's actually a fake. And then Simon, the one who can go invisible, shows up, and they just start having a conversation about what it is and what it can do and how it's a fake. And he just brushes off, like, she's able to just brush off the fact that she recognizes it and what it can do and that it's a fake because she is so good at making weapons. But then, like, this seems a little suspicious. Like, Nova, how are you not getting caught? Like, I thought for sure that was going to be the moment where the Renegades were going to start questioning her and be like, this is a little weird that you know this much, kid. But they don't, and it's kind of a cool scene. And I really liked getting to see Adrian's dads from not Adrian's perspective. Because when they're your parents, like, you have your own views and your own, like, kind of goggles on them. We have this moment where Nova's talking to Simon, and it's almost as if he's not quite the enemy. And also he comes off as really cool in the scene. So Simon's definitely my favorite. Like, out of Adrian's 2 dads, I like Simon more. I'm kind of hoping that Simon actually ends up being Adrian's dad, since we don't actually know who he is, and maybe his mom was just kind of lying when she said she didn't know, or he was a nobody. Like, that would be so cool. But also, like, either way, I just thought that would be a cool touch if that actually happened, but I'm not so, like, not gonna be hurt if it doesn't happen. And then the really big surprise at the very end of this book is that Ace Anarchy is still alive. And I'm like, what? And then I thought back, and I'm like, Nova never actually says he's dead, does she? Everybody else is like, oh, he's dead, and the Renegades faked the fact that he died. And even, like, seeing him jump into a fire, you might assume that he's dead, but maybe he got out of that fire somehow. But maybe the Renegades think he's dead, but he's not. The fact that he isn't dead at the end, and Nova knew it the whole time, it was both a huge, awesome reveal and really, like, making me excited for book 2 and what's going to happen with that, but also made me not trust Nova quite so much, because she knew and didn't tell us, and also she doesn't talk about her uncle as being alive. It's a bit creepy. A little bit creepy. So I have mixed feelings about Ace being alive. I think I mostly don't like it and don't trust it. Also, obviously, he's the really big bad guy that we should all be keeping our eyes on. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens in book 2. I'm really hoping that we end up with some kind of middle ground where it's neither the anarchists or the renegades in charge, because they're both kind of jerks. Nova alludes to several times in this book that people who don't have superpowers should be the ones who have a say. They should have some kind of democracy, where it's not just superpowered humans running everything for everybody else. That everybody should get a say in the government. And I'm hoping that's where this goes. Please, can that go there? Alright, so there are my thoughts on Renegades by Marissa Meyer. Let me know in the comments below if you've read this book, which hopefully you have, having gone through the spoilery section. What superpower do you like most, and which ones do you wish you would have? I kind of wish I could fly, just because I'm afraid of heights, and then if I could fly, it wouldn't be an issue. Like that would take away my giant fear if I didn't have to worry about like going splat on the ground. I think that would be kind of cool. That's just my thoughts. Um, so yes. Ta-da! Renegades! Okay. So peace out. I love you guys and keep reading. Bye!